Hello, people. How's it going? Well, it is the 85th, I believe, the 85th anniversary of September 1st, 1939, when the Germans invaded Poland. The World War II really gotten underway. I'm only going to recommend this book. I'm going to keep it short because this book is relatively easy to read, relatively short. I mean, of all the books I have in my library, if you had to pick a particular war I have the most books on, it is World War II. A lot of them are paperbacks. A lot of them are the Joe War books and the Bantam War books and the World War II library, but tons of books on World War II. This book is a very good condensed story of. I don't have any idea. Sorry, but it's a very good condensed story of the end of the events of the end of the First World War. Talks about the conflicts between Poland and Russia, and the rise and fall of the Weimar Republic, all the naval treaties, all the other treaties, all the treaties that were ignored, the treaties that were sort of followed but weren't really followed. It talks about. I mean, it does get into depth once Japanese eventually turned against the Western powers, because Japan was on the Western power side in the First World War. The Italians were too. This book talks about the rise of Mussolini pretty good. Talks about the rise of who, Hitler pretty good. It talks about the war, of course. It talks about the 1930s and all that chaos. This book literally is almost over a quarter of it, maybe even about a quarter of it. It's just preliminary stuff of dealing with all the personalities and all the treaties broken and all the little conflicts and all the incidences and the rise and fall of Nazism, the rise and fall of Mussolini, the rise and fall of Japanese Empire, and how that started and how that became more and more fanatical. It talks a lot about World War II, of course. It's about World War II. It talks about September 1st, 1939, which is now. I guess it doesn't go in depth. It's not an in-depth study. You literally have to get some of the other books I have for an in-depth study. But if you want a nice, concise, short, little, pretty good synopsis of the personalities, of the history of the battles, those who fought in the battles, of the Holocaust even, the underground resistance, politics, basically, I would recommend this book. I mean, it is the anniversary today. I didn't really plan on this one being a very long video anyway, but I did want to say something because it is a history thing and I like history. But this book does. I mean, this book, we call it, Peace and Armament, European Democracies, the Revisionist States, which would be mostly Germany and Italy, the Unknown Quantities, a pre-war series of crises, Russian Revolution for one, the Weimar Republic's fall, rise and fall, Weimar push, Hitler's almost rise to power, didn't rise to power, the League of Nations, which was useless, which actually the U.S. and Russia was not part of, because one other country also heard too, but they didn't join until later. Part 2, the Expanding War, the Blitzkrieg in Poland, which it didn't go as fast as Hitler wanted it to go. It actually took over a month to actually conquer all of Poland. Then the so-called phony war began. And then Hitler said, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to invade Scandinavia. Well, actually, the Finns started fighting the Russians because the Russians invaded. The Blitzkrieg in Poland, Northern Adventures, what I just said, the fall of France. France actually had a bigger army than Germany did in the beginning of the war. They could have stopped Hitler at the very beginning of September 1st, 1939. They just didn't want to. This talks about the politics that constantly got in the way. Or I should say the apathy of politicians, generals, and world leaders to stop you-know-who from doing you-know-what and starting you-know-what. But it does a good job of pointing out just how apathetic England was and how apathetic France was, and America was neutral, so we weren't doing anything except dealing with the Great Depression. But it does talk about just France had the bigger army. They could have easily have done something. In fact, Czechoslovakia had a better army than the Germans had at that time. And Poland didn't. Poland was still almost preparing to fight a war, World War One style, and they weren't really ready for what was coming on September 1st, 1939. But if you read this book, you get the distinct impression that the politicians in the beginning said, "We don't want to have anything to do with this. We're just going to sit here and see what happens," as it got worse and worse. But anyway, talks about the Battle of Britain, the fall of France, the Battle of Britain, where my grandfather actually did fly Spitfires. William Ullerton, my grandfather, he fought in the Battle of Britain. United States in the war, Battle of the Atlantic, War in the Mediterranean, the invasion of Russia. At least Napoleon managed to conquer Moscow. Hitler never got a chance, didn't have it. Japan, the road to Pearl Harbor. The Allied commerces and plans occupied Europe, being the Holocaust and the murder of millions of Jews and anybody else the Nazis didn't like. Japanese offensive in the Pacific, like Pearl Harbor, of course, Midway, Coral Sea, Guadalcanal, Battle of Okinawa being the last major offensive of the war in 1945. The crisis in Russia, battles for North Africa, filling Alamein, Kasserine, which we lost, Rommel versus Montgomery, as Allied strategic problems upgrading the Pacific. It really does go into detail why the European powers and the United States thought that Hitler had to be the first thing to deal with, and the Pacific campaign was secondary for the moment. The European resistance movement, the strategic bombing campaign, which, by the way, that's a very good book on the subject. It just happens to be sitting there because I'm reading it. I mean, it talks about the personalities of Montgomery and Patton and Bradley, Mark Clark, Monty, of course, Churchill, of course, FDR, de Gaulle, MacArthur, and a few other things. The collapse of invasion of Italy, the Italian campaign. The Italian campaign was a mess. I mean, it literally didn't end, I think, almost until a year after it started. It was a bloody, bloody mess. Enzio was a disaster. Normandy invasion, a campaign in France, which actually took a couple of months for the Normandy campaign to get over with. It wasn't one single day. The collapse of Germany, the collapse of France, winning and losing, biographical notes, of course. I mean, they have a whole list of books you can look onto that you might like to read. A cursory glance, I'm trying to see if I have any of these. I always do that. Whenever I buy a book, I will always look at the bibliography to see if I have the book. I mean, William Shire's Rise and Fall of the Third Reich is an excellent book to read. No. Anyway, but that was one book I like to read. That's very good. That one's good. I mean, World War II is fascinating, mainly because of it could have been avoided if the European governments had gotten off their rear ends and done their jobs, which they want to do because, not our problem, Poland. Not our problem, Czechoslovakia. Oh, now it's our problem. Well, darn. We have to do something now. But this book does a pretty good job of talking about all that and all the battles. And it's a very good condensed history. It's not a thorough, blow by blow kind of thing. Let's see, Mussolini. Let's see. William Shire's Rise and Fall of the Third Reich is very good. Study in Tyranny about Hitler by Alan Bullock is very good. Let's see. See any other books real quickly. Rise and Fall of Imperial Japan. Let's see. I mean, it's American Caesar by William Manchester is pretty good about MacArthur. Martin Blumenson's book on Patton is a pretty good book. There's several good books on Monty. Let's see. That's a pretty good bibliography. I like the bibliographies. Bibliographies. Or I also find books I would like to read later on. But I always like to check them out and see what books I have or I've had. I do have one on the Russian-Finnish War. Somewhere around here. I'm not organized in this room. But I mean, there are a lot of good books out there of the Second World War. This is just a very good, short, condensed book of the war, and the events leading up to the war, and the personalities leading up to the war. I like it. I've always liked it, and so yes, I like this book. I mean, trying to find. Oh, and the 1,000-Mile War. The 1,000-Mile War is the war in Alaska. War in the Aleutians, where Japan invaded the Aleutian Islands. They actually did invade the Aleutian Islands. Brian Garfield's 1,000-Mile War. That is a Bantam War book. An excellent book. Battle for Guadalcanal. S.B. Griffith. I have that book. That's a good book. Let's see. I'm just quickly going a lot of these books. I know I have a lot of them, but I'm just trying to get the ones that might be more interesting. Divine Wind, Japanese Kamikaze Force in World War II was a good book. There were a lot of good books. I'm telling you, at the moment, if you had to guess how many books I have just on World War II, that would be the majority of them, and it would be several hundred. Most of them are paperback, but I do have a lot of them. I like it's an interesting history. I mean, it's a very fascinating subject how World War I taught these people nothing. It only delayed the inevitable, which is what World War II was. II was going to come, was the inevitable. But beginning of the war, sorry, but the RAF could have, with the help of the French army, could have easily have stopped Hitler from invading Poland. They just chose not to. They allowed it. They sat back and said, oh, let's just think about this for a while. And a year later, they finally got around to doing something. It's called the phony war for a reason. Because they just all sat around, looking around, saying, not our problem. Well, they might as well have. Let's see. I'm just trying to see if real quickly if any books I have I could quickly mention. I should just do a tour of where a lot of my history books are in the Second World War are. That would be kind of fun. I mean, I could do that now. I could probably show you. Well, I have an idea. Come on. I'll knock that over. There you go, people. Okay. See that's there's the books behind it. There are paperbacks lined up behind it. You can see that's just my paperbacks, and there are paperbacks behind it too. So as you can tell, or not tell, I have a lot of books. I have lots of books. But anyway. But yeah, I have a lot of books on World War II. It's a fascinating subject. Shouldn't have happened. The Holocaust never should have happened. Germany's rearmament never should have happened. The rise of Imperial Japan never should have happened. But that happened for a very different reason. In a lot of ways, you can't sort of blame them their attitude that they felt like they were being disrespected, because in a lot of ways they were. It's kind of what they said. Okay, we're not going to follow the treaty anymore. We're not going to listen to you anymore. We're going to do what we want. We're going to build an army and navy, and then invade China. And a lot of people do think that was when World War II actually started. Hitler just sort of pushed the wall even farther and made it into a real world war. But anyway. Let's see, the Russo-Japanese War, War in the Mediterranean. I'm trying to see if I notice any books I have that I could mention real quickly. I have a book on the Battle of Crete. I don't think I have that one, though. I do have one. It's called 10 Days to Destiny, Battle for Crete. About after Mussolini decided, oh, this should be easy, and discovered it's not, and had to go with hat in hand to the Fuhrer and say, could you please get me out of this pickle that I got myself into because I'm an idiot and I don't know what I'm doing. I have Paul Correll's books on the Eastern Front campaign. Let's see. I've had the memoirs of Montgomery. Alamein. I know, I'm probably Barbarossa. Alan Clark's book on Barbarossa is an excellent book. A very good book. Vernell's Stuka Pilot, that's a very good book. Little, one-sided considering he lost the war. But look, even the memoirs that are a little questionable, and there are some of them, believe me, Albert Spears, they're still good. They're just got to take it with a very large grain of salt. Let's see. Let's see. I mean, Martin Blumenstein's book on Anzio is very good. He also wrote a very good book on Patton. Very excellent book on Patton. In fact, the best book I've read on Patton, I'm still in the middle of. That's an excellent book on Patton. A very good book on Patton. But as I said, I like World War II as a subject because it really is. It's why I like history. It is study of human nature, the best, the worst, and the most horrific. But anyway, this is an excellent book. Very excellent book. It's very short. I recommend it because it is very short, very condensed. It tells you a lot of information. Tells you it's written well. I like this book. Well, people, behave yourselves, because I'm not going to. Like, subscribe, share, comment. Later.